A good many of these kids had very, very little prior knowledge. There were a couple kids here and there who had an uncle or a cousin or a dad in the union, but, you know, kind of few and far between.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Adam, let's talk about your school visits last week. Last week,
Sure.
You went to 3 different schools?
2 different schools across 3 different days.
On 3 different days, for Workers' Memorial Day and for May Day, talking about organized labor, the history of unions, what unions do for workers today. So talk to us about, you know, first talk to us about the lesson plan. What did you go over with these kids?
Yeah. So, you said a little bit of it. You know, of course, introduced myself and talked about my own journey in the labor movement, and got a chance to talk about, you know, IATSE stagehand life and show them some photos of backstage, tell them a little bit about what we do, but also described what is a union and defined unions, the different types of unions, what they do. And then we took a look at, you know, membership of unions across the country and in Alabama and even across the world. Before we wrap things up, though, we did some union history, and we looked at the history of unions in the United States. You know, whether that's the different kind of waves of unionization that have taken place in different eras, along with some key terms and people and events like the IWW and Mother Jones and the Knights of Labor. So we hit several social studies standards in the lesson, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade history classes. And then we also had the career readiness component of it, because we talked about union job opportunities available in the community, including the apprenticeship programs that so many of our trade unions offer. I was really excited. So I visited 2 schools. One was Elkmont High School, and one was the Limestone County Tech School. And it was 10th and 11th grade U.S. history classes at both schools. And at the tech school, I actually had Eddie Mitchell and Thomas Berryhill from Ironworkers 477 get to join me and talk more in detail about their apprenticeship program and the opportunities they provide. So, you know, I know at least some of the kids reported that, you know, they were very excited to hear about other opportunities besides just the typical, you know, college, military, or, you know, whatever local job you can find, right? So yeah, that was a little bit about what we did and you know, and some of the stuff we talked about.
That's really, really cool, and I'm glad that you were able to do that. You said that, you know, you had a feedback form and 111 kids responded. Is that did every kid respond? Was that like part of the assignment? Or?
Yeah. So every kid, gave me some feedback. And it was 111 students total. I was able to talk to across 3 days, you know, across 2 schools. So that was really cool, and it was just a standard feedback form, but I asked them to give me a rating, you know, me and the presentation itself, a rating from 1 to 5, 5 being best. And the average rating was about 4.67 or so. So, you know, I think about like 80 of the 111 gave it a 5. I will take those numbers any day.
Yeah.
Those are good numbers because teenagers can be a tough crowd. You know, the Elkmont kids, some of them already knew me because my wife teaches there. I substitute there occasionally. At the tech school, it was a little different, and they were on a long block period class. So I was with them for quite a bit during the class. So it was, you know, a little different audiences, different structures to the presentation. Was able to do a little bit more like group work in the tech classes on the history part of things, which I always believe in. So the feedback was positive. There were several kids who were interested in learning more about unions. Several kids learned that unions actually existed in the industries that they're interested in. For example, there was a young man who wants to work in the video game industry. So I told him, how there's been a growing effort to unionize in the video game industry, whether it's Sega or Blizzard. So there were several conversations like that were really good. Lots of good feedback and comments. I think the kids will really learn something, and hopefully some of them at least will take up some of the opportunities. If nothing else, they're aware of them now, where maybe they weren't before. At least half the class or more did not raise their hand when asked, have you heard of a labor union before? Now, particularly in the 10th grade, where, it hasn't really come up a lot in class. Now, in 11th grade, they ought to know it, but, I also know how frequently 11th graders pay attention. Right. So, but still, a good many of these kids had very, very little prior knowledge. There were a couple kids here and there who had an uncle or a cousin in the union, or a dad in the union, but, kind of few and far between. What I did find is that many of these kids were already working, even the 10th graders. Many of them were already working, and working quite a bit, actually, and certainly going right up to the line on the child labor law, frankly. These kids are working their tails off, and that's an interesting thing. I mean, it's hard to focus on school when you're tired from work, and, school is its own kind of job. So, we had some good conversations. We talked about right to work versus at-will employment. We talked about what should it look like when a worker gets fired, Right. When should a worker get fired? How should that happen? What's your different perspective as a boss versus a worker in that situation? So we had some good conversations, and, I'm excited to do more of that. I think the labor movement, we always have to be growing. We always have to be building our support and expanding our outreach. And so why not talk with young people? Employers are doing it. Colleges are doing it. The military is doing it. So our labor movement should be doing it as well, talking with high school students. And so, I hope to do a lot more of this with the North Alabama Labor Council. I know I've already confirmed another teacher is interested at a different high school next year. And so, bring them on. The more the merrier. I hope we can do this more broadly, and I hope we can do more outreach in terms of career fairs and job fairs, that sort of thing as well. Because we've got trade unions out here in the community with great apprenticeship programs, great job opportunities. These kids can learn and get paid while they learn, and then graduate and get a good job, without debt. That's pretty cool. And a lot of kids just, they need to know about that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you going and doing that.
Absolutely.
And like you said, happy to have the Labor Council support, and hope to be doing it more through the Labor Council and bringing more of our union affiliates in. If you're, a member of a union locally and you want to get in on the next right. school visit, let us know. And if you're in a local union, or even if you're not in a local union, if you've got connections in a school, that a history teacher, or the principal or something,
right.
Definitely feel free to gauge their interest and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
In us coming by.
Yeah, we'd like to talk to as many high schools as possible. We'd like to connect through the history classes to make sure that the history of unionism is being taught. And I thought that was important that I spoke on Workers Memorial Day and International Workers Day. But also, the career tech folks, ready to work classes, things like that. If you know anybody, or if you're a high school educator and you'd be interested in us coming, just let us know, because we definitely take you up on the opportunity.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.